If you're having sex, or if you're thinking of having sex, please pay attention. Today's guests are speaking out about the truth behind STDs. Now, we've all heard the whispers and the jokes about herpes, but herpes is no joke. Almost 50 million people are infected with a strain of genital herpes. Michelle has been living with herpes for 5 long years. So, Michelle, why are you sharing your story today?
Because I think it's important that people not be ashamed to have herpes. It's a very common disease. It's a virus. It's manageable. But there's such a stigma surrounding it because it's a sexually transmitted disease.
How did you contract herpes?
I had sex with a boyfriend one time.
One time?
One time. The first time we had sex, I contracted herpes.
And how did you know that you were infected?
Any relationship I entered or left, I always made sure to be sexually tested before I entered the relationship and when the relationship ended, because I figured entering into another relationship, it was the right and fair thing to do, to be responsible.
And did you feel a symptom? Was there any type of pain or a blister? Or
About a week after he and I had sex, I wasn't feeling well, and I waited another 2 weeks. And I ended up, I was almost hospitalized with pelvic inflammatory disease.
Wow. You were misdiagnosed with a yeast infection, right?
I was told that I had an external yeast infection. And I ended up having a blood test, the Western blot. I didn't find out my results until 3 months later because with everything going on, having been so sick, the doctor forgot to sign off on the report. So I called the doctor's office and I said, I haven't heard from you, I'm okay. And they said, we're sorry, no, you have herpes.
And what went through your mind when you were told that you had herpes? What went through your mind?
I was so shocked. I mean, thinking back to that day, all I thought about was the jokes I'd heard about herpes, the stigmas.
That's what I was talking about earlier. It's jokes, jokes, jokes. But so many people have herpes, but a lot of people telling the jokes probably have it.
But you hear it's people that are dirty, you know, prostitutes and drug addicts, and I'm none of that. And then I find out I have herpes, and I cried. I would be okay, and then I would just start crying. I was devastated.
And how is dating for you now?
It's also called H.
Okay.
And before I accepted that I had herpes and was knowledgeable, someone wanted to take the relationship further, and I told him I had herpes, but not knowing, and the vibes that I was sending out about it being confused and upset, he called me back 3 days later and said, thank you, but I don't even want to know you anymore.
What?
Since then, though,
It's interesting because there's a lot of people that have a lot of sexually transmitted diseases and don't say anything and have unprotected sex and spread it.
Absolutely. You know, in this audience, statistically, they say that, you know, 25% of people in this audience probably have herpes, and of that, 90% do not know.
Wow. Because
there's such a thing as asymptomatic shedding. You can have the virus and not actually have the symptoms or have an actual outbreak.
Yeah, we have a photo of an outbreak, and it's pretty graphic. And it's herpes on, not your mouth by no means. This is just an anonymous person.
But you've got to remember, too, that you can have no symptoms at all. Some people mistake herpes for jock itch or an ingrown hair or maybe just a red patch of skin or a little cut. So what that is, that's the most extreme that you can have, that herpes will look like. Most oftentimes, people don't have symptoms or they're just mistaken like mine was.
Jackie, how common is herpes?
Well, she's pretty much right on with her about 25%, and that 90% of people who have it do not know that they have it. But we have to realize that by the time anybody in this room hits 50% of the people in their age group will have it. That's how quickly it spreads from a young age until 50, and by the time you're 70% of people will have it.
How do you treat it now?
Now we have, thank you God, we have Valtrex, which...
I've seen those commercials.
And
it's about suppression.
They suppress it.
We've all seen those commercials.
The thing to remember is, though, that you can still shed it even when you're on suppressant medication, but far less likely to shed. You shed it 10 to 20% of the time with no evidence. You have no idea you're shedding the virus.
Thank you. And Michelle, the last thing I want to ask you is, I know that you've looked into you came across a website for dating.
People can get together and talk online where they can discuss having the disease where they can help each other, they can meet people, they can date people. There's social groups all around the United States. And it's more or less let people know you're not alone. It's a manageable disease. It's a virus. It's not a death sentence. It's nothing to be ashamed of or fear.